Hey, girlfriend, you know who you are. You have big, big dreams. You want to write a book, stand on a TED Talk stage, be a life coach offering wisdom from your RV in Montana, a cafe in Barcelona, or a beach chair in Tulum. Your other girlfriends and your family, they don't always get your biz savvy. Why do you want to leave your JOB? Because you're a C.A.T.S, aka coach, author, thought leader, and speaker. Meet other change makers like yourself and find out how they make it happen. This is the Big Meow podcast.
Hey there, cats. It's Kristen, and today we're here with Beth English. Hi, Beth.
Hi.
So I love hearing about how you use imagination and creativity in your work. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Well, I'm an artist, and so I am very well versed in using my creativity to express myself and use my voice. And I have been leading a community of artists for over a decade. And so I've really learned the things that block people from connecting to their creativity. And it's usually fear. And so I work with people to connect to their creativity, open themselves up, and express themselves.
I call that the F word.
Fun?
But it's way worse than the actual F word, because I think fear holds you back in so many ways in your life. Like you don't take any risk. You don't follow your divinely inspired ideas. You don't put your work out there in the world. You don't express your voice. So fear is, I believe, a very destructive force that many of us, especially women, really need to find ways to. I don't think it's overcome fear. I think it's make peace with fear.
Well, I know fear very well. My brain is actually wired for fear because I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And so since I was a young child, my brain has been wired for fear and panic. And, I have PTSD, and I've had to learn how to work with my brain and with my body as a way to not let the fear stop me and to experience joy. So that's really what it is that I have learned through my own experiences of going through trauma recovery and being an artist and expressing myself, not just through painting, but through music and through comedy and performance. And so I truly understand. I've been there. I can say I have been there and know exactly some of the best ways to overcome it or to make peace with it.
I just want to recognize you for the hardships that you've overcome. It's not easy. Not everybody can do that. And I have noticed that many people like you, women who've had sexual abuse, who've had these challenges in their lives, you are very, very powerful messengers. You come from this place of deep soul darkness. And inside that is this lotus, right? That is allowed to bloom and to bring humor and joy and insight that if you hadn't had these experiences, I don't know, would you have the same perspective?
100%. I think the people who have wisdom to share have been through a lot.
Yeah.
And on the surface, we may not see exactly what they've been through because we just don't know what lies underneath. And that's why it's so important for me to share my message, is because I have made peace with what I have been through and I have learned from it. And I know many people have not. And I want to give them hope to believe that they can do this too, that there's nothing special about me except for the fact that I decided and made a choice to do it.
I love that. And I think that actually is a big part of the healing journey, is when we make that choice. We put that stake in the ground and say, I'm moving forward from here, and then you're working from this place of not necessarily denying what happened to you, but that you're going to now use that as this inner fuel to become something greater than the circumstances that you encountered, that created trauma in your life.
Definitely. I see visions, I notice signs, and I take them to heart and I follow where I'm being guided. And one thing I have learned is that when I am guided to do something, I better do it because it will not leave me until it is done. And so I'm like, okay, I give up. Like, I'm going to do this thing, even though I don't know what I'm doing. I am afraid and who knows what's going to happen, but I do it anyways. And then usually at the end of it, something amazing happens. And that's why I don't stop and just keep following that inner voice, that intuition, whatever you want to call it. I think we all know that we have that, but whether or not we listen is what makes a difference.
Oh my God, absolutely. You are totally singing my song here, girl. But I think that intuition and imagination and creativity, everything that you talk about is really the map for how we can live our biggest, boldest, most dynamic life. Our soul gives us a lot of nudges. It gives us a lot of clues. It actually sometimes even says, hey, turn right, stop here, do this. The stronger our listening is, the more clear the directions are. But I do think that the key is to actually listen and then take action on this intuitive guidance that comes in.
Yes. And sometimes it's so confusing. We don't know exactly what step to take. And so I do address this in my speaking and when I'm working with groups, because we need a roadmap. Because if we're following our intuition, it can be kind of vague sometimes, and maybe sometimes really specific, but still stepping out in that faith is not easy. And learning how to do that step by step by step is the only way to get to the other side. And so taking those small steps, I think, are so important. And so I really encourage the women that I speak to and the groups that I work with to really look at this like the creative process, which is very iterative. So we're always changing and learning and growing step by step. And so that's what makes stepping out in faith sometimes a lot easier, when you don't think you have to know exactly what to do or what the outcome will be, but just trust yourself to take the next step and the next step.
Okay, we've talked about steps a little bit, so now you're going to have to unpack them for us.
Well, first, I feel like when we connect to ourselves, the best is when we're connecting our brains and our bodies, and we can do that easily through the breath. And so many people already understand the power of the breath, but if we really make it a practice every day, I think sometimes in our breathing meditations, or just maybe we're out walking, we start to receive more information. And so if we're confused about something, say, connect to your breath, get quiet, and try to receive more information around what it is that you are feeling like you need to do. And then we need to just take care of ourselves, give ourselves the energy to step out in faith like that. So make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because if you don't feel good, you're not going to want to do what your intuition is telling you to do. And then we need to learn.
You need energy, right? Like,
yes.
I noticed, just to touch base on these steps, is like, I notice sometimes when I'm working on a big project, like I'm literally holding my breath. Like I'm sitting there working on something, I'm holding my breath. I'm like, gosh, why am I holding my breath? Because and I think that we don't realize that we do these things. We take our breath for granted, but then, if we're really concentrating or thinking about something, suddenly we're like, why am I holding my breath? And then that creates anxiety, right? Because we don't have enough oxygen.
Right. And we're clenching our jaw and we're shutting ourselves, we're constricting our bodies in a way. And what we have to remember is when we're open, that's when we receive. And so when we are noticing just even like small body movements or posturing where it's shutting ourselves down, just notice and be aware of that so that we can remain
I know
open.
You're making me sit up straight and take a deep breath. I'm like, am I breathing right now? I'm going to put my shoulders back. So.
And then the last two steps are ask for help. Ask yourself for help. I think when we learn to ask ourselves for what our needs are and actually give ourselves what we need, then it makes it easier to ask other people for help. And then we need to be talking about what's going on inside of us. We need to be sharing verbally what we're picking up, what's that intuitive voice is sharing, and then just keep that cycle moving constantly every single day.
I love that idea, Beth, about asking yourself for help.
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful. Okay. Because I think it's based, and you tell me this, is it based on this premise that we have this higher knowledge, this higher wisdom within us that is our loving guide that knows us better than anyone, and that we can actually give ourselves the right advice?
Yes. We have it all within us. We just don't trust ourselves enough to listen to what we already know is true.
I love that. So how do you ask yourself for help?
I ask myself, what do I need? What do I know to be true? fill myself with questions that are going to get me curious. And then keep thinking and keep wondering. And that's where the imagination comes in. That's when options start to appear. Like we feel stuck because we don't know which way to go. It's because we haven't been curious enough to see all the options available in front of us. And then naturally, we're going to gravitate towards one thing or the other. And I say, trust yourself in that process as well.
That's a magical advice, because I do think that many times we get really focused. It's like we're looking through that one little monocle. And so no wonder our options feel so limited, because it's so tight. It's so restrictive. There's not enough spaciousness. And I've learned this from all my years of, working as a coach. I've worked with just thousands of people. And a lot of us think too small. We're stuck. We're in this really narrow lane where we're not viewing a lot of options, and we're not using all these things that you talk about: imagination, creativity, breath, inquiry. What else do I need to know? What else could be true here? Is there something I'm missing? I love all these things that you're reminding us, because we all know to do this, but we just forget.
Yeah. It's so easy to forget when we're not in a practice of it. But as an artist and someone who follows the creative process to learn, I have learned myself, when it comes to helping myself and identifying my needs, that we have to get curious. We have to do the research. We have to ask people what they think and get some feedback, and then listen. And so there's all these things that we can be doing that sometimes we forget because we put so much pressure on ourselves to have all the answers.
So what's something that came up for you recently in your business, and how did you solve it? I guess I'll use the word solve it. What did you do about it?
Well, during the pandemic, of course, the speaking industry really took a big hit. And so I pivoted into coaching online, and that was great, but I love being on stage and connecting with people live. And so I pivoted back into speaking, and I knew that this time I wanted to just be the best speaker I could possibly be. So I invested in myself, and I did what I needed to do to really take myself to the next level. And that was really scary, because investing in yourself is always a scary thing to do. But that's, again, listening to my intuition, trusting myself that I'm doing the right thing. And it was totally transformational. It up-leveled my mindset. It made me a better speaker. There's so many benefits to investing in yourself that you don't see on the front end, but going through a transformational process to become a better version of you, I say, is priceless.
Well, I think when you're an entrepreneur and you're putting yourself out there, you don't just wake up one morning and you're an expert entrepreneur. Okay.
Right.
It doesn't really come with a manual. So to become an expert in all the aspects of being an entrepreneur, and it changes, it's always iterating, it's always changing. You have to take some time and some energy and reinvest into getting mentoring, training, feedback, strategies, just so that you can navigate this path to being not just an entrepreneur, but a successful, abundant, prosperous, dynamic, impactful entrepreneur.
I know. I think we have a vision for ourselves, but then we wonder, well, how are we going to get there?
Exactly.
And then people sort of just show up in my path, and I just listen and I get curious, like what we've been talking about before. And that's exactly how I found the training that I needed and the path that I needed to be on. And so I just trust the process, really, and just keep moving forward. And that really is a good strategy for me.
I love it when you lead an intuitive life. I have a whole background as an intuitive. I've done psychic readings and everything. So, and oftentimes I would find that the person who was sitting across from me, either the reading that I was giving them in the session was also for me, right? I don't know if you've ever experienced that, where you're giving somebody some feedback and you're like, oh, I should be listening. This is for me too. Or even more so, the thing that I'm looking for just shows up. It just shows up at my house or shows up at my doorstep. It's amazing the magnetic synchronicity that can happen when you live an intuitive life.
It is. And it seems like it's not even real sometimes, because how could these things be falling into place the way that they are? But like I said, we have to remain open, I believe, if we're going to receive those messages, because sometimes I think we can be our own worst enemy when it comes to, showing up for ourselves and doing the things that we know we need to do because, well, we're afraid. Right. And so those things come up and we have to learn how to deal with it. And that's why I have this message to share with everyone that will want to listen about how to get out of fear and connect to joy and live this type of life, because I have been doing it for a long time now and I've seen the benefits of it. And I just think that it's accessible to anyone who wants to go down that path.
Absolutely. Beth English, thank you for being on the Big Meow. This was super fun.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Big Meow podcast, sponsored by C.A.T.S Network. If you liked what you heard, please take a moment to subscribe and share this podcast with your friends. You can also join our network filled with positivity and possibility. Visit www.catsnetworking.com to join us and learn more, together with your magical, motivated, and mystical new friends at C.A.T.S Network. Let's transform 1 million lives with your message. Are you feeling isolated, sitting at home in your PJs? Or perhaps you're tired of the comfy sweatpants with holes in them that are hidden just below the camera? I mean, you could puke at the thought of another day of Zoom meetings and reporting to your BOSS. Do you want freedom from your home office desk or the office cubicle? Do you want freedom from your current career? Or are you frustrated that your online biz dreams are going nowhere? It's all too overwhelming. Where do you start? All the tech, the choices, and your message. Yep, I said your message, your brand, your voice. What is it? Do you even know what that means? Do you need a biz coach but don't want to invest the big bucks? Let's face it, being a solopreneur is lonely, but you don't have to do it alone. And here's a solution. Join C.A.T.S Network. C.A.T.S Network is a woman-only membership community exclusively available to you, the life coach or executive coach, the author, the thought leader, or the public speaker. If you identify with this list or want to work on adding some of these to your skill set, C.A.T.S is the place for you. Check us out at www.catsnetworking.com. That's C.A.T.S networking.com. Because let's face it, cats are better together.